Yeah, you looking at me, you want to fight? You want to fight? You want to fight? Don't look at me. Chris, man, we have the same nipples. And I'm coming for you. Yeah. Because you're going to play my boyfriend. I'm like, I'll absolutely do it. There's a guy named Hideo Kojima. He's going to ask you to do something. Just say yes. This might be one of my ultimate favorite movies. This guy's like on the street. Bravo.
Vidéo Club.
Welcome, Norman.
Oh, thanks.
What is your relationship with a DVD store, like when you can rent DVDs?
Yeah, I mean, DVDs, that's what was happening when I started the movie business. It's nice to see a spot like this because there aren't any spots like this. There was one in New York that I used to go to a lot. That's no longer there. But yeah, I love seeing this. I love, the artwork you can see. I remember when I was a kid, that movie The Wall came out, the Pink Floyd animated movie The Wall. Did you hear the falling bomb? My mom used to love that album and she would blast that album. But I would sit and I would look at the album covers. I would just get lost in the artwork, all the little stories, all the little cartoons and animations. And then when the movie came out, I was just transfixed. It was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen. But yeah, I love being able to touch things and look at the artwork and open it up. And yeah, it's great. Yeah. This Saturday Night Fever. This I watched when I was a little boy, and I wasn't like old enough to be into disco, but this movie, from the opening shot and he's walking down the street and it's just his red shoes and he has like this bounce to him and he passes like this girl. He turns around to go talk to her and she keeps going and he's like, oh, okay, which sets the tone for his whole relationship through the movie. And, that scene on the bridge too, when the girl's gonna jump and...
Come on, I'm sorry, right?
It was just, I don't know, I was a huge John Travolta fan back then. I think I bought the soundtrack to this as well. And just the music was so inspiring and when he's out there doing his thing, you're just like, yeah. And his relationship with his dad,
Asshole.
It's so good. This movie, Barbarella, I was totally in love with her when I saw this movie.
Hi.
I really have sort of an affinity for not just the big blockbuster movies, but also, the art of different, the art involved, the set decoration, all those things were really inspiring to me. I didn't know I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be an artist and just make artwork and live in a big house with a bunch of cats running around. That was like my dream. And then, I started watching movies and seeing all the elements come together. Like Midnight Cowboy. You have Midnight Cowboy here somewhere? This is my all-time favorite movie. One of the reasons I wanted to become an actor was because of this movie. And it was, Joe Buck, he had this certain sensitivity to him. And, I lived in the Midwest for a little bit when I was a kid and I sort of understood it, like the confusion of, trying to be something you're not. And, being in this big city like New York, this made me want to move to New York as well. But this was the first time I ever saw the editing and the music and the wardrobe and the atmosphere and the acting and the writing all come together. He'd be in the mirror and he's talking to himself. He's like, where is that Joe Buck? Where is that Joe? And they would cut to where he works in the diner. Where is that Joe Buck?
Where's that Joe Buck?
Where's that Joe Buck?
Where's that Joe Buck? Where is that Joe Buck? Look at this crap!
And I was just like, it all came together as an art piece. I just loved it. When she's walking her dog and he comes up and he's like, oh, excuse me, ma'am. I was looking for the Statue of Liberty.
Pardon me, ma'am. I'm brand spanking new in this here town. I was hoping to get a look at the Statue of Liberty, huh?
And she's like, yeah, whatever. Right. And then she's like, are you serious? And he's like, he's up in Central Park taking a piss. If you hurry up, you can catch the supper show. And then she ends up with him. And then he asks her for money. And he's like, well, I'm kind of a hustler.
Myself now, I'm a kind of hustler.
She's like, you big longhorn bull, I'm a beautiful woman, don't you? And she chases him out of the... That's so New York, just to flip it and be like, so this whole movie was just like a gym to me. Oh,
which is the homme.
Was your son born at 6 a.m.? Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to work out this birthmark, the 3 6s.
I was so obsessed with this movie when I saw it that, like, I think it was the power of a young boy controlling all these adults I was just like, wow. And I was a very insecure kid. You know, I had a teacher that I think she liked me, but when I saw this movie, I would just glare at her in class, like this older lady teacher. And it, you know, and it just like in my head, I'm going, ah, ah. And this lady, she would, it was super nice teacher. And she would go and call on people on the room and she would just jump over me. And I'd just be like, ah, and I was like, wow, I'm controlling this lady. I'm in her head. I have some power here. You know, at the end of the school year, she was like, can I talk to you for a second? She's like, why do you hate me? I'm like, I don't hate you. I think you're great. And it was all because of this movie. But I loved it. I loved, I don't know, feeling like you had some sort of power. And that was because in this movie, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, I watched this at a friend's house. He had a sheet and he had a projector and he had sort of a party at his house and he played it. And I was like, I couldn't leave the room. Like the party's going on. I just stayed in there and watched this movie. I was so transfixed by this. And then when Walking Dead came around, they had me reading Merle's lines.
This is too good. You were auditioning for Merle's role, right?
Well, I read his lines, but everyone told me that he was still playing the part. Okay. So I thought maybe he was on the fence about it, or maybe he wasn't going to show up. And then I read his lines, and then they wrote a new part for me. But one of the reasons I wanted to do Walking Dead was because I was Michael Rooker's brother, because he was so good. And, you know, this was his first movie as well. And I asked him, I was like, you know, what made you want to be an actor? And he said, well, when I was a kid, I would watch TV commercials of kids eating cheeseburgers. And he'd be like, that's not how you eat a cheeseburger. And that's why he wanted to be an actor. But this, I mean, what a powerful performance.
Don't do that, Otis. She's your sister.
Okay, I was only kidding around, Henry.
Tell her you're sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Especially as your first movie. I think when I first started acting, there was a list of actors that were so loose and so confident. I think because I felt so insecure all the time, I could see these guys being loose and free, and Mickey Rourke was one of them, and Matt Dillon was one of them. You know, and they just had this way about them where they were authentically themselves, and there was a vulnerability to them, but they were confident, and it worked. And I think in my mind, I wanted to be like some of these actors. And then because of those performances and those personalities, it made me really get into film. I mean, he had it. Jack Nicholson has it. You know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. What an amazing film.
Yeah, I know, but you think we might ease it down a little bit so maybe the boys didn't have to shout? Huh?
There's been so many, you know, I have a production company, and I've been trying to make certain TV shows and certain movies. And so much of it is based on this movie, you know, The Shining. Here's Johnny! This movie, wow. Like, what a powerful performance. And I always liked sort of the metaphysical sort of connection between the dead and the living. And this had that, but also like the cinematography was so insane. The intensity was so insane. The set decoration and the lighting, like, and his performance was just fucking mind-blowing, you know. Little pigs, let me come in. And I'm coming for you. And he's chasing him through the, you know, Danny! It's just so brilliant, you know. And Shelley Duvall, so great in this movie. Anything Stanley Kubrick does, you know, it's funny because you're like, you know, name 10 of your favorite movies? And I'm just like, Stanley Kubrick. Like, you can't go wrong with that guy. And in this movie, Dune, like the original Dune, David Lynch. This movie took you to a whole nother world. You know, it was the first sort of sci-fi movie that I watched, and I was so enthralled by all the different performances. The floating fat man was just so amazing. And the one lady that makes Kyle put his hand in the box, like just, you know, like such a powerful performance from everybody. And Sting, like good-looking Sting bouncing around in his underwear, I will kill him. I was just like, wow.
What did you think of the new version?
I love the new version. I really do.
My Iraqis. My June.
I think like when you make classic movies like this that have something like, you know, specific they want to do and what they want to say, it's hard to redo that and have that same feeling and not have it be like just a big sci-fi movie with performances. But the new Dune captures the same sort of feeling that this Dune had, at least for me. And I think it's great. I'm a huge fan of the new Dune. But this movie, I remember just watching this and just being like over and over and watching it and just being like, how do you get there? You know, it just amazing movie. Oh, There Will Be Blood? I mean, this, wow. Daniel Day-Lewis in this? Oh my God. And Paul Dano? How good is Paul Dano in this? First off, when he has to sort of eat crow and go in there and, you know, be baptized and forgiven in front of everyone, the humiliation.
Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Yes, I do.
Get out of here, devil! Out, devil!
And the dialogue in this too, and how he just can't live with them, how they're disgusting to him, people. I mean, everything this guy touches is just a masterclass. You know, I saw him walking once in New York, and he had like this long hair on and these sunglasses on, and he was just walking like down the street, and people were just like, oh my God. And he just, I mean, like with like blinders on, just walking down the street in slow motion. And I was like, what is he doing? You know, Willem Dafoe did that once to me. I became friends with Willem because I did Boondock Saints with him. And he used to just like fuck with me on set all the time. Like he thought it was funny. Like there's lines in that where I'm speaking Latin and Spanish, and I was mixing up my languages. I couldn't get it together. After like take 50, they put cue cards up here, and the camera's going around in a circle. And every time the camera went behind Willem's head, he'd go, and I was like, dude, stop it. Like he kept doing it. He thought it was hysterical. But Willem, I remember, I lived on Worcester Street, and it was like a Saturday morning, kind of early. I went to the grocery store, and I'm putting my key in my door, and I heard this, Norman. And I'm looking around, and there's one like a guy that I thought was like homeless or something, and he was like leaning over like this. And I'm like, okay, it's not him. I'm gonna put my key back in the door. Norman! I'm like, just this guy's like, he's doing like this, walking down the street. And he'd do it again. Norman! I turn, he goes, hey, it's Willem. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right? And he was, I'm going to play this movie, Shadow of a Vampire, I believe it was called. Yeah, I'm playing Nosferatu in this movie. And so he's walking around Soho in New York on a Saturday full of tourist shopping. And he's just walking down the street like this. And I was like, bravo, bravo. Oh yeah, Catherine Bigelow, The Loveless. I remember seeing this movie, and Willem Dafoe, I was like, God, I want to be Willem Dafoe. Like, just in real life. He has so much charisma. I can't take my eyes off of him, ever. In this movie, I remember, like, the dialogue, too. Like, there was, like, little, like, one-liners that were, like, specific to the time period. But they stuck in my mind forever. And this I remember he hooks up with that girl, and his boys are like, yeah, how was it? He, right? And he goes, the door was wide open.
Door was wide open.
And I was like, wow, what a good line. And Catherine Bigelow's like, I mean, you know, I've contacted my agent several times with like anything she does. Can I please just, I'll do craft service. Can I just like hang around this lady? And then I did a movie recently called The Bike Riders. I watched this every night while I was doing it. So I played this character called Funny Sonny. So I'm in Cannes and I'm sitting next to Jeff Nichols, and I don't know he's Jeff Nichols, right? So we're like having drinks and we're talking and everyone's having a good time. I'm like, well, what's your name again? He's like, Jeff Nichols. And I'm like, wait, did you direct Mud? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, motherfucker, why didn't you tell me you were Jeff Nichols who directed, like, you know, I've been talking to you for an hour. And then he said, I'm doing this movie. There's a character. Would you like to play this character? And I'm like, yeah, like right away. But when I saw the cast, I was like, God, everyone's so good looking in this movie. Like, and you got the leather jackets and the collars popped and, everyone's like, they're doing this, right? And they were all great, but they're all like really good looking. So I'm like, Jeff, can I try something? And he's like, yeah, try whatever you want. So I had Greg Nicotero make me these fake rotted teeth, and I'd fly from France to Ohio back and forth doing the movie, and I'd walk around Ohio with these fake rotted teeth, and I'd like go to Starbucks and see if anyone could understand me, because in my mind I'm trying to I'm going to like Kmart and stuff and Target, and I'm like, where's your sweatpants? What aisle are sweatpants on? And I hadn't met the cast. I hadn't met Tom Hardy. I hadn't met Austin Butler. And all of a sudden I get like super nervous, and I'm like, this is either going to be great or just suck so bad. But I'm like, fuck it, here we are. So I do it, and I think it worked. Yeah, it's his fault. In this movie, this, like Henry, gets into the mind of this guy, and it's shot so well. It's shot like you're a fly on the wall in his head. There's a scene in this, he's living in a car, and he's got newspaper all over the windows of the car, and it's such a powerful scene. And this actor too, like, he's so real. It's like, the movies that I liked were such character studies, and they were different. They were a little off. And I guess I thought of myself as a little off, and I had kind of a chip on my shoulder, especially when I first started acting. Like, I was always squinting at everybody and giving dirty looks. Somehow that face turned into a career, but it was just because I was like insecure, and I just felt like everyone hated me, so I hated you too, and I just kind of grew up that way. But all these films, like that, they don't make films like these anymore. Like, they don't do this so much. Not just the Marvel thing and all of that thing, because I like those Marvel movies, but these independent films that are such intricate stories, but these like just little moments in these like haunt you, and they stay with you, and you repeat the lines in your real life. Like, how many times I've said the door is wide open? Like 1,000,000 times. Mad Max. It was completely different than anything I'd ever seen before. The bad guys were real. It's wild because on Walking Dead, when we were in Georgia, when we first started it, our set designer, he worked on this film. And I just kept asking him questions and questions. Like, what was that like? What was that like? There's a scene in this where there's a bunch of dead dogs everywhere. I'm like, did you guys make all those dogs? And he goes, no, we went to the pound, and these were the dogs they euthanized. They just gave it, and we just put them in the field. And I was like, whoa, like, that's crazy. But besides that weirdness, I loved this movie. Like, Mel Gibson in this film is so good, man. And there's all these like sort of like bad guys, but there's like something feminine about them, but they're like crazy dangerous at the same time. Like, I don't know, this was a groundbreaking film. And then Mimic, I was in this movie.
Yes. Body parts, cocaine-filled condoms, little baby alligators. You wouldn't believe the stuff I'd seen.
I've done a few things with him. I even did a video game with him. But Mimic, this is what got me my SAG card, was this film.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's my first film. I didn't know if I wanted to be an actor, but Guillermo, he and I became friends, and I loved watching him work, like get inside his, the same with Hideo. Guillermo introduced me to Hideo. And they're very similar. Like, I did Blade 2 with him as well. He would sit behind the monitor like a little kid during fight scenes, and he'd go, cool. Everything's happening over here. And I would just watch Guillermo, and I'm like, God, I love how much you love your job, how invested you are. He made it feel very loose for me. He's such an artist, Guillermo. In this film, I remember Quentin Tarantino was dating Mia Sorvino at the time. Yeah, I do this scene, and I'm like, I'm nervous. And I'm like, it's like a lobster, right? Like, just some weird bullshit.
It's a lobster, right?
While she's talking, I just started cracking my knuckles, not thinking about it. And Quentin came up to me, and he's like, oh, I really like what you did with your knuckles. You were crackling your knuckles. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, what's he talking about? I don't know what that means. To be honest, I'm still sort of confused by it. Tarantino's in here with the Kubricks, and, he'll go down forever, that guy. But yeah, this was a fun movie.
And talking about Guillermo, you talked about the video game that you did with him that didn't happen.
The Silent Hills one?
Yeah.
I was at Comic-Con in San Diego, and Guillermo called me, And he goes, there's a guy named Hideo Kojima. He's going to ask you to do something. Just say yes. And I go, what is it? And he goes, Norman, don't be an asshole. Just say yes. And I'm like, but. And he's like, stop it. And I go in there. He goes, have a seat. And he goes, Norman, look, I know you like to do these weird little indie movies that no one ever sees. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what does that mean? And he's like, I know that's your thing. You're cool. You do little weird movies. I go, I don't just do that. That's not my thing. And he goes, okay, great. You're playing Scud. And I'm like, what's Scud? And he's like, look around. And there's all of his illustrations of all these vampires and all these things. And I was like, whatever you want to do, Guillermo. He's one of those guys that literally, if he was like, hey, I got a dog food commercial, and I'd be like, I'll do it. Anything. You just follow him. But Hideo is like that as well. So Hideo came to San Diego with an iPad of the Silent Hill stuff he was working on. And we sit down in the back of a restaurant and I'm watching on this iPad and I'm like blown away by what he's doing. And like Guillermo had said, I should have just said yes immediately. So I just said yes immediately. But then he had a problem. Something happened with Konami and Kojima and that game never happened. So Sony basically gave him a new company. They said, here's a blank check, do your thing. And with Death Stranding, that was his first game, and it launched his whole new career. I just said yes, of course. And Guillermo's in it. There was a scene in the game where Guillermo and I are in the shower together, which was very strange. And he plays a really weird character. We all do in that. But whatever he wants to do forever, I would be a part of it. Oof. This movie, Angel Heart. I was living in Tokyo when I saw this. Okay. And I was so transfixed by Mickey Rourke. Like, he could do no wrong. And he had so much style and so much charisma. One of my favorite actors of all time. And De Niro in this, and Lisa Bonet. And the whole movie's in the dark, practically. Yeah. I think there's like 3 scenes where they're in daylight. Everything is suggestive with the fan and when it flips. And I just thought this movie was a masterpiece. Yeah, Close Encounters. Yeah. Another film, just to take you to a whole nother world. Like, when that little kid, they live out in the middle of a farm, and his toys start playing, and he's just so innocent. He's just drawn to the lights, and he's laughing, and the mom starts to figure out what's going on and freaking out and shutting all the doors, and all of a sudden the kid just goes under the thing, and he's just walking out into the field, like. But there's an innocence to it, like, only Spielberg could do that. He's a master at that. And Richard Dreyfuss, oh my God. Jaws was another one. And I don't know if like aliens and extraterrestrials were the thing at this time, or this movie made it the thing of that time. I think it made it the thing. Like, everything was about aliens after this. It was all over newspapers, like sightings of UFOs, and that's what movies can do. Oh, Harry Potter, Clemence Posey, and Denai.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I haven't seen this. Is that crazy?
No.
Any Harry Potter you haven't seen?
I've never seen Harry Potter. I've never seen Titanic either.
Don't be absurd.
I wanted to see Titanic, but then that song that played so many times on the radio that I didn't want to hear the song anymore. Clemence Posey. I saw a movie she did with Michael Caine. It was in New York, and they become friends. And that movie made me want to cast her in this show.
May I?
Yeah. Because Michael Caine, like, one of the smoothest together, most confident actors. And I know, like, I've seen speeches with him where he explains how he wasn't as confident as he comes off. But for her to be with a powerhouse like that and just be even keel with him, just having normal conversation, which is sometimes is the hardest thing to do on film. I just thought, wow, she's such a strong character. And then I saw some other things, but I'd never seen Harry Potter. Oh, Denai. Like, Denai can do no wrong. I remember the first time I ever met Denai, she was standing with a samurai sword and she had zombies connected to a chain, and she was just like this. And I was like, who is this girl? Like, but she's so strong and an amazing playwright as well. I saw a play of hers she did in New York. But just like a strong, powerful girl, just like her character, Michonne. She's that girl, but graceful as well. Like she's graceful, she's intelligent, kind of lights up a room, you know. She's really got that quality. Oh, dude, can we talk about this real quick?
You can.
I love this remake of this movie. Going back to Guillermo days, the original of this with Chris Christopherson. I love Chris Christopherson. Like I have this tendency to sort of latch on to older men that sort of take me under their wing, you know. Chris was one of those guys. And he told me about this movie. He told me that Barbra Streisand wanted Elvis Presley to play the part. And then there was a billing thing. He wanted to be above her billing, and she's like, no, you're not. And something happened. Okay. But Chris in this movie, I thought he was so great in this. And then when we did Blade 2 together with Guillermo, I was sitting in my trailer, and knock, 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 and it's Chris Christopherson. And I'm just sitting in my underwear, right? And Chris like, wait, what are you doing in there? And I'm like, oh, I'm watching this documentary called Don't Look Back. It's this Bob Dylan documentary. And he goes, oh, scoot over. And he comes and he sits there. He doesn't have a shirt on. I don't have a shirt on. We're watching this, and he's like telling me all the behind the scenes stuff. He's like, oh yeah, Joan Baez and I was right there, and Bob was mad about that day. And, you know, telling me all these behind the scenes stories. And we're sitting there, and I go, Chris, we have the same nipples. And he's like, yeah, we do. So now all the time, if Chris's name comes up, I say, you know, we have the same nipple. I don't know. That's weird. I don't know. Our DP on our TV show is the DP of Doberman. I was like, I can't remember how I discovered it. This and Lehane, you know, there's like a kid's thing to it. Yeah. And when he's standing in front and he's like talking in the mirror and he's doing all this stuff.
Oh, c'est à moi que tu parles. Les mecs, c'est à moi qui parle, son cul. C'est à moi qui parle, putain. C'est à moi que tu parles comme ça, mec.
You know, the French section, there's a movie that I forgot about. And it's, I just remembered it like 5 minutes ago. But it's called Dream Life of Angels.
Ça va?
Elodie Boucher is so good in this movie. It's a beautiful movie. I did a film with her called The Beatniks.
Who are you?
Drive your car? Yeah.
She and I became very close, and she's such a strong actress. But Dream Life of Angels is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Right. I think her and Léa Seydoux, I think, like, are two of my favorite French actresses. I worked with Léa on Death Stranding, actually, and she and I became really good friends. But both of those actresses just have a quality about them that is there's nobody like them, you know. They're strong and powerful, and they sort of kind of like read your mind when they're talking to you, which is a scary thing.
Maybe we can finish with the TV section over there.
Yeah.
I was curious to know what was your relationship with the TV shows before then making The Walking Dead?
You know, AMC had Breaking Bad, it had Mad Men, it had these shows that I was like really, really into. I hadn't really done TV. I did an episode of Charmed. I was in this.
Behind you.
How'd you do that?
Which happened because Rose and I had the same manager at the time.
Okay.
And we were at a dinner, and she goes, oh, you should, and I think I was kind of flirting with Rose. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, you should be on my show. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. She goes, you're going to play my boyfriend? I'm like, I'll absolutely do it. My first foray into television wasn't the smoothest. I kind of had like a little nervous breakdown on that set. And I was kind of like, this doesn't feel right. This feels all fake and phony. And and it's because it's TV, and it's hard sometimes to find the balance of TV and storytelling and art. It's especially when you have a hit show. But I think like you get into the rhythm of sort of repeating yourself because it's working, and it becomes such a big machine that nobody wants to derail the train. But yeah, it's different. TV, now I love TV. Like I love being on a television show that's lasted this long, because, you see me age in real time. You see me grow up. You see my character learn as I learn. Like I started out as such a hothead on this show, and you looking at me, you want to fight, don't look at me, and like huge chip on my shoulder. And as the show has gone through the years, I've taken some of the knowledge, or my character has taken some of the knowledge of the people that he's met along the way. Like, it's kind of this weird social experiment. Oh, Sons of Anarchy?
We can sell you guns, as many as you want.
I have watched it. I think it's great. You know, I've worked with almost this entire cast on different projects. I think the show captured motorcycle culture really well. I think it's evolved to a certain extent where, you know, I have a TV show where I travel the world called Ride, and we ride motorcycles all over the world. Want some coffee?
Yeah.
What I've discovered is everybody's the same. And I think there used to be a time where Harley guys didn't want to look at Triumph guys. But now, you know, being on that show and traveling the world, all the bike riders are exactly the same. They all have the same mentality, two wheels, the freedom. There's a brotherhood amongst motorcycles and motorcycle culture, which I think they captured really well. If my bike breaks down on the side of the road, I know it's going to be another motorcycle that stops and asks me if I need help. Like, it's the same. And I think they captured that really well.
The German movie.
Yeah, Paris, Texas, the Wim Wenders film. This might be one of my ultimate favorite movies. I think the cinematography, Harry Dean Stanton in this, Natasha, I think there's a vulnerability to it and a very artfully shot, beautiful storytelling, not just in the visuals, but the dialogue.
I wanted to see him so bad that I didn't even dare imagine him anymore.
Harry Dean Stanton just breaks your heart in like every frame that he's in. And even when he's hopeful, he breaks your heart. But, you know, I've directed a couple of like little short films, and I steal shots out of this all the time. The review mirror shot, like one of my favorite shots I've ever shot, directly stole it from this. I met him in Cannes, and I was like, oh, you know, yeah. This one of the most beautiful movies ever. Highly recommended.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Konbini!